Hey folks, and welcome to a video that talks about essay number 2. I know you feel like you just got essay 1 done, and here I am ready to throw essay 2 at you. But I want you to be familiar with the prompt. I know you still have a couple of weeks before you even have a draft due. But again, I want it in the back of your mind, and I want you to start thinking about it. And I also want you to be aware that the activities that we're doing in class with the reading responses and the discussion activities are all leading into this essay, and they're going to be very similar in terms of what I'm asking you to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at the prompt, and I'm going to explain it more in depth. This prompt I think is a little bit more complicated than your first essay, so please make sure you watch this video in its entirety because I'm going to give you some examples and hopefully clarify some questions and concerns for you. So the background of the essay prompt just says, in class we've analyzed various texts whose themes center around cultural borders and cultural struggles. We've also examined concepts and theories that give us a language to discuss cultural borders and how bordering occurs. So you're going to continue those discussions in essay number 2. And you can already see those terms coming up. As I mentioned, they would be relevant to this essay. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to spend some time analyzing, and you're going to have the choice of which text to focus on, but you're going to spend some time analyzing 2 texts and looking in particular for these concepts of cultural bordering. So here's what the task asks you to do. Choose one concept or theory of cultural bordering. Okay, so that's here. So for example, you can choose cultural hybridity, right? So you're just choosing one. And I am going to ask that you only focus on one, even if there might be some overlap, because I want you to dig in deep with that one concept, right? So hybridity, appropriation, commodification, hegemony, marginalization, or othering. So again, you do need to choose one of those concepts. So choose one concept or theory of cultural bordering and textually analyze a minimum of 2 primary sources from our assigned readings in Unit 2. And that list is down here. So in other words, what I'm asking you to do is, number 1, how do your, forgive the typo, how do your texts illustrate or discuss, here let's fix it, your chosen concept, and what might the authors be arguing or suggesting about your chosen concept in regards to their lives in particular or society in general. Okay, so let me unpack that for you. So essentially you have kind of 2 tasks. These aren't necessarily separate tasks. You can talk about them at the same time. But how do your texts illustrate or discuss your chosen concept? So let me give you an example with, let's talk about hegemony. So this is the one I'm going to choose for my essay is hegemony. And I'm going to choose Coates's letter to my son. And I'm also going to choose for my essay, I'm going to choose to talk about 40 knives, right? So let me give you an example from Coates's letter to my son, which you haven't read yet. But Tanahashi Coates, he talks about in his text the struggles that Black men in particular face in today's society when it comes to physical harm being done to them and police, brutality or police excessive use of excessive force, right? So one thing that you might talk about in your essays, you might go through his essay and his article and look for where does he mention cultural hegemony, right? So if you remember what hegemony is, it is the dominance of one cultural group over another. So where do we see in Coates's argument where he discusses or illustrates the dominance of, for example, the white race over the African American race, right? So this is one thing that you would do. So you would kind of go through and look for text, and then you would discuss, like Coates is arguing that white folks have hegemony over Black folks in these particular contexts, right? And then you would use quotes to back that up. Let me give you another example. Say that you want to discuss cultural hybridity, and one of your chosen texts is Fish Cheeks, right? You might argue in your essay that Amy Tan demonstrates the concept of hybridity when she discloses the example of the culture clash at the Thanksgiving dinner, right? So that is hybridity because Amy Tan, as a young child or teenager, however you want to call her, struggled to fit into the two cultures, right? So she wanted to be American, but her mom also wanted her to be Chinese, right? So I might pull out that quote that talks about how her mom, what her mom said to her about how you want to be American on the outside, but you must be Chinese on the inside, right? So this is, that would be an example of cultural hybridity. So essentially, you're taking one of these theories and then you're going to comb through these texts and look for examples of where you see them. And we're going to get some practice with that this week. We're going to get some practice with that in the lab. And we're just going to continue practicing this until you feel like you're super ready to go with this essay, okay? So again, you're required to use a minimum of two outside sources, or I'm sorry, two primary sources. Actually, I do not want you to do outside research for this essay. Please don't. So this essay should only have resources from the syllabus from the Unit 2. If you would like to use more than two, that's fine. So if you want to bring in, 3 or 4, that's fine. Yeah, so stay with what's been assigned. The reason for that being is the focus of this essay is not a research essay, so it's the skills I'm trying to have you practice is not research, but rather close reading and textual analysis. So that's kind of the big key one for me right now. So some tips for a successful paper. So in your introduction, it would be helpful to offer a brief overview of the text you plan to analyze. In your essay, if you're talking about Amy Tan's Fish Cheeks and tribalism, so introduce those two authors and introduce the titles. I will be looking for direct quotations and in-depth quote analysis. So again, that's really when I want to hit home. I'm going to have a video later that talks about kind of paragraph structuring. I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to demonstrate what I'm looking for when it comes to quote analysis. So all of these are things that are going to be coming up, and definitely you will get some instruction there. But yeah, so I will be looking for in-depth quote analysis. Make sure that your analysis links back to your chosen concept. Again, I'll give you some examples of that later in another video. After you give your quote, it's your job to discuss and analyze how that quote or illustrates or discusses your chosen concept, right? So don't just give me a quote from Amy Tan and say, therefore hybridity, right? So you have to demonstrate and pull it out for me. Like, here's why this quote demonstrates cultural hybridity. Remember that analysis is more than summary, so you're not just saying in the text this happened, but rather you're kind of arguing that, here's what this quote is demonstrating in terms of commodification or hegemony or othering. Your essay needs to have the intro, thesis statement, multiple body paragraphs, and a works cited page. Again, your works cited page should only contain resources that have been assigned in class. No outside research for this essay. It does need to be typed in paragraph MLA format. And then mechanics, keep an eye on those, right? I forgot this on the last essay, so I apologize. So for your draft, I'm looking for around 3 to 4 pages, and for your final draft, a minimum of 5 full pages. So getting to the very end of page 5, right? So again, I promise we will be coming back and looking at this prompt and getting additional examples. I will give you model paragraphs that you can kind of look at, different samples of how to analyze quotes, how to make claims, and possibly even like how to structure or organize your essay. So take a deep breath. You've got this. You're amazing. And again, think about how all of the activities you're doing is leading up to this essay. But again, I wanted to assign this to you kind of early because I want you to start thinking about which is that concept that I'm most interested in, and what are the readings I'm most interested in talking about, and again, start thinking about those ideas as you read. Okay, folks, good luck. Let me know if you have any questions, and like I said, more examples and more clarification is coming, so hang tight.